Hey guys, it's Matt. Welcome to the first episode of Midnight Reality, a new show idea for hardcore reality conversations. Even a voice in the night, which was supposed to be more like this, is breaking down into like something like the old-fashioned radio show with bad jokes and ridiculous sponsors. Sometimes, even though it's down to a half page, we still need to have a pretty hardcore reality discussion. This one is extremely important. Your comments are extremely important. This conversation here, the entire book that I just wrote, if we don't have consensus in this area, and this has really been bothering me, I know I haven't told you what it is yet, the whole book, I might as well just toss it. I mean, this is extremely important. I think we'll come to the same realizations on this and agreements pretty quickly, but it does concern me a bit. So hold back your comments if you can, and let me just get to the heart of what I'm going to try to discuss here. Actually, a couple quick things before getting started. This is not for bathroom boys. This is for crack 'em, smoke 'em if you got 'em, Peters or other, crack your paps, sit back, relaxed, fill the bath, reality pondering. I think it was just a video or two back. Someone said, I sat through all of that for nothing. Bathroom boys, you're not probably welcome here at all. This is not your type of program. And finally, if anybody wants to help me out with a basic graphic, just say Midnight Reality without the show, like Mark did the old-fashioned radio show graphic for me and for us a few years ago. So this is the extent of all I can do. Just put text on top of the same old painting we've been looking at in the truth community for years. So if anybody wants to help me out, just Midnight Reality with a cool graphic or whatever, I'll use your graphic and trash this horrible graphic. The topic here is, are we sure we're right? And there's a lot more here than it seems, folks. Are we sure we're right? We come into this with a very arrogant attitude. We do. I don't know if it's bad or good. Hey, we can see our neighbors are NPCs, our neighbors are organic portals, our cousins are background people, or even a more loving term, sheeple, normie. We come into this with a very arrogant attitude. We better be sure we're right. Meaning, well, of course we're right, man. If reality is fragmented and cemented, where our reality, what we're shown and see and interpret, is actually a different reality happening at the same time, we are not right. We are then seeing what the reality is showing us, which is not the same potential as what the reality is showing my friend Tony or others. If they are literally seeing we're operating in a different reality, we're not right. We're right for us, but we're not right overall, if that makes any sense. But Matt, it gets into what you talked about a few weeks ago, where if we're separating from reality itself, metaphysically separating, or standing on the shore and the ship is sailing, it's getting further away, the ship of fools. If we're physically, metaphysically, or transcendentally separating from reality, then it will continue to break down because the underlying nature of everything here is a trick. It's all false. So Matt, yeah, we are going to be able to see certain things that no one else can see. That doesn't mean they're right, we're wrong. We can be right, and they can be right at the same time in their interpretation of reality. And I think this generally gets back to what I talked about probably about 3 years ago. The cement is hardening. It was before the solstice. When was the very important solstice with the planetary alignment? Was it 2019? We were saying the cement is hardening on one's ability to see. I think people that show interest still can come around, but the cement on most people at this point has hardened. I think that analogy that we brought forth years ago was accurate. We said this is a time when the cement still has some fluidity. I don't know how you talk about cement in these terms, but when we talked about it is hardening and will harden, that is pretty much played out. And then we had the whole 2020 thing where literally your cousins and your Aunt Ginny just didn't see the same reality we did, or at least didn't interpret it the same way. Like all the old standards of what we knew in the past just went away. So let me get this straight, Aunt Ginny. Who do you know who's sick? No one. Who do you know who's died? Has your weather person died? Has anybody on your sports teams? Has anybody on Tom and Brady's sports team? Or has anybody do you know, had any sort of it? No one. Well, then why are you going along with it? It's almost like reality to them It was a different standard. So when you say the cement setup, it's set up on us, but we're on the banks of the river. We're pulling in the old reality, or the standards and metrics of the old reality. The ship of fools is fluid. The cement for them means not really a hardening of cement, but they will always quickly quantum leap to, or adjust to the new reality that the ship of fools puts forth, where we don't. We reject it. Unfortunately, that means as time goes on, it will get even stranger for us. It will get even stranger. It'll get even stranger for us. So getting back to, the general concept, and I don't even know where this is going to go at this point. I have to work into it. How do we know we're right? How are we so sure we have the correct insight where everyone else we just know is wrong and we're right? We are real spiritual beings, and we just look down on the normies, the NPCs, the organic portals. We better be sure we're right if we're going to come correct with that sort of attitude. So in other words, here's what I would like to do to start that. And not that no one will ever engage with me in terms of family or friends, but in some way we need to do this. Like if I could sit down with my friend Tony and just see or try to measure the objective standards where our realities coincide. Now, I don't mean to confuse this anymore, but it gets back to the idea. This is not easy to talk about, guys, these sorts of topics. Remember when I said I made a DVD movie about the 7-Eleven submission of the job application in 2001. It was in that brief time when I had lost the Texas Shrug channel, and this one hadn't yet started. I was looking through the Mac, and I put some movies together, and I gave it to one of Pam's friends, who is the ultimate, I don't know what, MSNBC watcher, believes in the Biden administration, all that. Said, here, watch this. All right, I didn't give it. See, Pam gave it to him. Now, Matt, that's one more removed. That's a problem. And I'll wrap it up because you know where I'm going to say, and I've talked about this before. Now, this movie, it was rock solid. I can generally put a pretty convincing argument together. What if I had access to all the clips? Well, he came back and said, I watched this hour-long movie about what you crazy say happened on the 7-Eleven job application. You didn't use those terms. He'd say, it didn't convince me at all. I saw nothing here that would change my opinion, which it's just not possible. Did he see the same disc that I laid down? Did he see the same images? How could he interpret it any other way? And what is that scene in Shallow Hal, where Shallow Hal says he sees a certain reality. He sees Gwyneth Paltrow. Why they use her, I have no idea, but let's just go with it. She's supposed to be beautiful. I think the original Rosemary was way better than Gwyneth Paltrow, but I don't want to stray. He says, how could she interpret anything she sees in the mirror other than being beautiful? Hal sees a reality that's completely different that Rosemary's father sees or Rosemary sees. Hal just can't understand it. How could she interpret anything she sees in the mirror as anything other than beautiful? So what's the difference between me handing this MSNBC watcher the disc? How could he interpret this in any other way than the official story is completely ridiculous? Trust me, guys, this disc was rock solid. I could show it to any of you, and you would say, there's no possible way you could come out the other side of watching this hour-long, quote, movie, or our type of documentary. Nobody could come out the other side still believing the official story, just not possible. Yet this person did. And he gets into, Matt, what did they see? When they popped that disc in, what did they see? Or maybe the disc was exactly what you laid down. What actually reached their eyes? What did their brain interpret? See, it does kind of get into reality bubble space, in my opinion. The farther I was away from him, the less of a chance that I would have an influence. He could go, that's why everyone says, go do your own research. They go off and do their own research, and they find exactly what they want to find, exactly what they expect to find, and what the not milk wants to feed them. Now, we've learned that if our reality bubbles were conjoined and I was sitting next to him, that's not a guarantee of anything, because I can sit right next to Tony in a bar, and we can have an hour-long debate on the merits of V'ger 1 and 2, which is the Voyager, and he can explain to me how it makes absolute sense in every way that this thing is over 1 billion, both are 35 years past their life over 1 billion miles away, past some sort of mork from ork cloud, and its signal is coming back exactly right, being able to be detected amongst this impossible background radiation noise of the universe. 80 billion frequencies we have now, from regular AM and FM radio to Wi-Fi, and these little signals that apparently come from a few frozen D batteries. Just makes perfect sense to Tony that, of course, it could be 1 billion miles away and the signal could reach here. And we talk about no meeting of the minds. I said, shoot a BB across the room, there's a chance you'll miss. Times it by 1 billion, and that's what this signal's trying to do. I've actually had people in the truth community, people that are our own group here, come back and actually try to explain V'ger to me. Matt, the signal spreads out. It doesn't have to hit a line like a BB. Well, if it spreads out, it's that sort of diffusion or diffuse, or it's an unstable diffusion, then it would become watered down. It would become weaker, and it would become diluted, still not being able to be detected billions of miles away amongst the millions of different components of the background frequencies and radiation, what we call Houston and Earth. What the hell? The point is, I can't just turn to Tony and say what we used to do. Oh, he's stupid. Or the really first grade truth, he deep down, Matt, he knows what you do. This is the biggest bunch of horseshit I've ever heard, and it's still going on in our community. Deep down, Matt, that Tony, he knows what you do. He won't accept it. He's holding on to what's called, his worldview. He wants to protect what he wants the world to be because he's raising children. Deep down, he knows. No, he doesn't. It's actually becoming more and more likely that he's literally in some sort of different reality. He's not stupid. He's highly intelligent. Who knows? So the whole point, let me try to bring all this together, is I'm looking for where could we find objective standards, and in making sure our perception is not just a customized reality for us, but our perception is correct on the entire reality. Okay. Enough beating around the bush. The bathroom boys are like, my God, get to it. I've got all sorts of centerfolds here and magazines to go through. Okay, Tony's sitting next to me. I would like to say to him, in your opinion, if you rolled up a bunch of tinfoil, could you throw that through a steel beam the size of a Mack truck? You know what I'm talking about with the job application. What's he going to say? Oh, in my reality, sure. I mean, you'd think these objective things that we share still have to be there, right? Tony would say, no, of course you can't throw a rolled up piece of tinfoil through a steel beam the size of a Mack truck. But we would never be able to get in this situation. That's what's so frustrating about the, quote, cross that we carry. Then, Tony, how can a bird's wing, where on top it says no step? It says no step because it's that flimsy. You can't even step on it. It'll break right through. How did that go through? I mean, in other words, you could just do this over and over again for every single Cake and a Lake event. For every where do we meet that objective line where at least we share the same reality? What's very frustrating is we almost never get the opportunity to do this with somebody like Tony that sees the world different than we do. Now, as long as there's objective standards we share, and he's not going to have just expose it as a completely different reality. He could say, well, of course anybody could roll up some tinfoil and throw it through a steel beam. That's been happening forever. I mean, if that happens, then everything breaks down. I'll take everything I just wrote in the book, just throw it out. Okay, we're in a different reality. Throw everything out. I don't think that's going to happen, but things are getting so strange where I'm not taking anything for granted anymore. Things are so weird at this point. It's like there's nothing more that I would like to do than sit down with a bunch of MSNBC watchers that believe in everything and just make sure we share the same fundamental reality at the base level. Just common sense things like, do you know how an air conditioner works? And this guy's like, oh yeah, sure. I used to actually work on them. Do you know of any air conditioning system anywhere in the world that can cool that doesn't need to vent its hot air? Like, well, no, that's how they work. They would need to vent the hot air, or it wouldn't cool. Then how did it work? How did it work on the BEM? On the LEM? How did it? If it vented to the outside, then wouldn't that scene from Total Recall and Schwarzenegger with his eyeballs popping out? Wouldn't that have played out? See, not that I'm not trying to come up with techniques to go wake people up. We know we can't do that. And I wouldn't even if I would I just want to see if we share the same base reality at this point. I'm not really looking for too much. I mean, my standards are pretty low at this point. It would be in a way better for us or much easier for us if through this line of questioning, sitting down with somebody or book us into the room, we went through this line of questioning and things started to appear where we did not have the same baseline of reality, or at least maybe because we're rooted to something that's in the old world. Fluid reality happened, Mandela effects happened, things changes, fluid reality. And then this fundamental base reality is different. We're so separate from it or separating from it, we don't understand it. It would be better and easier for me at this point if Tony said, of course, anybody could take some sheets of tinfoil off Reynolds wrap or aluminum foil, or just roll it up, and any child could throw it right through a steel beam. Of course, Matt. What world have you been living in? I would like them to say that. I know that's ridiculous, and that's not the greatest example, and it doesn't have to be that dramatic, but I just want to make my point. Of course, I could think of better examples. But if Tony and your Aunt Ginny kept saying things like that, like, well, wait a second, that just doesn't work in the old reality, then that would actually make it easier for us. It really would. It wouldn't prove we're crazy or we are outliers. We expect to be outliers, having doved off the back of the ship of fools or dived off. They still don't know which word it is. It doesn't matter. We jumped off the back of the ship. It's better for us. But it's more frustrating if Tony comes back and says, again, bad example, but what you talking about? You can't take no sheets of Reynolds wrap and put it in a little ball and throw it right through a steel beam the size of a Mack truck. Well, then if that's the case, shouldn't we be able to quickly and easily bring them to the conclusion that an American Airlines bird wing can't do that either? That's what's so frustrating about the situation that we find ourselves in. So finally getting back to the initial premise of this presentation, in terms of me writing the book, for example, we better be sure we're right. Now, if we sit down with somebody that watches MSNBC and they confirm we do share the same base or underlying reality, then we're right. There's just no question about it. So we could just do this time and time again. Everything favors us unless we're in different realities. Pick anything. There's Post-it notes all over every wall. Throw a dart. Vomp. Stars in space. Okay, what's an issue with stars in space? There are no pictures of stars taken from space. So let me get this straight. I can stand on the ground with some disposable camera that I found in an old trunk that picked up in 1978 on the streets of New York. I can just take a picture up in the desert and I can see stars on my disposable piece of shit. But all the pictures that have been taken out there with $100,000 cameras, they don't show stars. Wouldn't it be easier to get a picture of a star as you get closer to it? See, that's like, is that an objective reality we share? I'd love to be able to ask an MSNBC watcher that. And they would say, well, yeah, it does make sense in my reality that as you would get closer to it and away from background light of cities and things like that, it should be easier for the star to show up in a picture. It is frustrating to the nth degree, guys, because, of course, every indication is we share the same base reality, yet the people around us, like we're in some sort of limbo that's just intent upon making us go mad. They will tell us that we share the same base reality in terms of can the tinfoil wad go flying through a steel beam the size of a Mack truck, but then they can't ever make the jump to something that's just 3 levels up. Okay, you can't throw the wad of tinfoil through the beam. Can you throw a baseball through the beam? No, let's just keep working up. Can you throw a cinder block through a beam? No. Well, let's take this bird's wing over here. Are they going to just all of a sudden, maybe that's where they get the download. Beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, 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 boop. They get the download. Oh, yeah, that wing? Oh, yeah, sure. That could go right through. Who knows? Who knows? This is the cross we poor sons of bitches carry. And getting back to one of the initial premises coming in, if we're going to carry a degree of arrogance, which we do in this community, that, oh, we're a powerful spiritual being who can see, and oh, my best friend over there, that's just some normie, and that's an NPC. We better be sure we're right. Now, I'm not questioning that we're right, really, okay? But there's this little thing where it's like, okay, a scientific experiment. The scientist actually wants to test against his own theory to make sure every basis is covered. before something like this book comes out. That's what I'm doing here. It's not like I was thinking we might be wrong coming into this video. I just want to make sure we're covering all bases and there's not anything I'm missing. And the more we do this type of exercise, or the more I talk this through, even if they are in a different reality, that doesn't change anything in the book I just wrote. It actually makes the situation for us even better. We become even bigger winners. We just win the showcase without even trying to bid on it, without even having to spin the wheel. If we could find differences at the fundamental level where we don't share the same reality, maybe the new reality in the Ship of Fools has morphed. So of course you can throw the tinfoil through the steel beam. Well, that would be like a Mandela effect if that ever happened. We disagreed at the fundamental basis of how reality works between you and your best friend, or me and Tony. If that worked, I'd be great. That would be a Mandela effect. We would be rooted into an old reality where you can't throw a piece of tinfoil through a steel beam. That would be just as great. So it's almost like, no matter how this goes, we still win. We still are correct. The premises of the premise. What's the plural of premises? That can't be right. Premises? Whatever. The premises of the book still are correct. And the weirder it gets, the more we win. So, okay, I should just shut the damn video down now, but we'll keep going. I like generally the concept of higher self. I don't really like the name. Let's just say higher. What makes you, Matt, are you going to start bitching out your higher self again? You do it every couple of weeks. It's not going to be it might trap you in that reality system for another 300 million years. You better be nice to. I don't like the term higher self. I'm going to talk to it right now and look up. What makes you higher? Why are you higher? By default, then that makes me lower self. How does that, do you think that feels? Lower, am I lower self? No, I'm located here self, you're located there self, or you're dislocated self. But that sounds like an arm out of the socket. That's not good either. I generally like the term. All it means, just like, you know what spiritual means? All the complicated horse shit. Matt, don't break this down to a clown show. You were doing very well so far. You delivered a bunch of horse shit all week. A fire at Disney World. Big effing deal. You're doing okay here. Keep it together. Okay. So you know what spiritual means? Being spiritual just means a realization that the whole of you is just not what you see in the mirror, not here. That's all. That's spiritual? Doesn't it have to be associated with religion or something? No. It just means I'm spiritual. It means the whole of me is just not here. I'm more than I perceive in the mirror, okay? Similar to higher self. I don't like all that touchy-feely mumbo-jumbo. It just means there's an aspect of me very similar to spiritual that's not here. An aspect of you looking in at you. Maybe it's like, we watch the NFL. Maybe it, or whatever you call higher self, like watches us. One higher self spirit to the next. Which you gonna watch? Which one of your incarnations you gonna tune into tonight, Joey? I got this son of a bitch on Earth. This real cocky, thinks he's so smart. His name's Matt. You gonna tune into that Matt conspiracy son of a bitch tonight and watch that aspect of you on Earth? Yeah. Or another. Who you gonna watch, Jane? I got this son of a bitch over here on the same reality system that your Matt is in called Earth, but this one's investigating and starting to believe in like Saturn Moon Matrix. And they don't realize that what they believe is what they get. And if they investigate and start to believe, because the reality will show them bullshit yellow breadcrumbs, if they start to believe that they're trapped, oh no, look what's happening over here, higher self to higher self. My little son of a bitch in Earth is starting to believe in Saturn Moon Matrix. And they're starting to believe they're going to be sucked into some moon or something and then recycled right back. And this aspect of me isn't realizing that what they expect to get, they get. This poor son of a bitch down here on Earth is screwing all of us. Guys, I just paused and sat here for over 5 minutes just thinking about some things. And, you've heard me say reality gives itself away, but in terms of that understanding that's the best news of all time, we'll talk about it in a minute. The number of ways, or the number of things it has here, the multitude of things it has to trip you up is so impossible, so unnatural, it gives reality away. It's the best news of all time. If I have said anything that was useful over the last 14 years, one of the top 3 things, no doubt, would be to continually back up as far as you can. If you want to understand reality or your role in it or what you need to do here, back up as far as possible and always see the whole. What does it want? It gets right back to the same. A million times I've said it, the Hannibal Lecter. What does he do, this man you seek? He kills women. No, that is incidental. If you look at conspiracy too closely, there's 3 things I've said over 14 years. This is one of the 3 things that I'll hang my hat on. To back up and look at the whole. And when you think you've gone back far enough, you haven't gone back far enough. Go back again and look at the whole. You get close to a conspiracy, you're doing exactly what the reality wants. You get close, and what do you do to investigate mud flood or Tartaria or whatever? You dive into it. Oh, look, here's old maps. Here's old map. You got old maps, I got old maps. You got more maps, I got more maps. I got more big maps, you got small maps. Oh my God, you're getting closer to it. We know 100% that is not how you figure out this reality. You turn around and you get as far away from it as possible. And then only then do we have an idea of what the whole looks like. This is 100% first grade truth. If you're getting closer to it, you're failing. Well, Matt, practice what you preach. I hear you. Apply it here. You can sit down next to Tony. He'll tell you that a sheet of Reynolds wrap aluminum foil can't be thrown through a steel beam. But then why are you so worried that he can't just go 3 layers up and see that a blue jay or a robin wing can't fly, can't go through a steel beam? What's the difference between trying to understand that and understand Tartaria? Maps. You know what? There is no difference. I'm not ashamed, but I would like a word that's not so damaging. Yes, there is no difference. There is no difference. That's why it always comes back. Worry about yourself. Worry about yourself, spiritual journey. I think it's the beginning of Bagger Vance, the movie, where Bagger Vance is not about golf, it's about life. Just substitute life for golf. It's a great movie. Was it Jack Lemmon says, golf is not a game that can be won, it's a game that only can be played. And in terms of trying to figure everything out, we're trying in a way that's like trying to win. It can only be played. It can only be worry about yourself. It can only be played person by person. So as we've gone through this, and what minute is this? 27 minutes. I'm happy to say that every single conclusion or premise in the book still holds. I guess I'm trying to poke holes in it. I don't think holes can be poked on it in it because it's basically just an expansion and the details of the half page. In the beginning, it's broken down as 3-part reality. Part 1, simply realize the entire nature of reality is to play a trick. What is the purpose of the trick, and what do you do for yourself once you see through it? We all see through the trick. We thought part 1 was the finish line. It is not. It is necessary to get to the other parts. That's where most of us are. Actually, most people in our community still fall for the trick. It's just a different aspect of the trick. Conservatism is an aspect of the trick. There are thousands and millions of ways this reality is slice and dice the trick. Graduated animal farms suits the level of the person doing the research and the investigation. Once you back up far enough and see generally through the trick, getting to the spiritual level, what does it want me to do? What does it want me to engage in? Then you go on to part 2. Okay, now that I see how it's trying to trip me up, what am I here to do? The purpose of meaning in life, first off, is to see that life has meaning. What does that mean, and how much time do I have left, quote, alive to do it? This is why I have an issue with all of religion, because I see the entire reality as a trick. So the religion would tell me, most people agree, but your religion, that's the one thing that's just immune to everything that's here. The one thing that's not part of the trick. It just stands by itself as being pure and legitimate. I just don't see that. I'm sorry. I understand if people have a personal relationship with their God or creator, I understand that. But joining a large church or being part of a creation of man, a religion, the way it's presented, this I don't understand. Relationship with your God, or certain evangelical Christians have a relationship with Jesus directly, I can understand that. But when it becomes a mechanism of man, a system, a church, a religion, and it becomes buildings and infrastructure, I mean, you've got to be kidding me. People say that's the only part of the... You're right, Matt, it is all a trick. But my giant religious infrastructure, that's the only exception here. Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was just sitting here thinking for a few more minutes, getting back to when we talked about years ago and 20 minutes ago about the reality has hardened. The cement has hardened. The cement has set up on each of us. And there's no doubt about that. It's so true because it's like a sliced and diced segmentation of these hardcore beliefs that people are so dug in, and that's the premise of this video. If look how the QAnon people are so hardcore, they still believe in it. That Trump supporters, and you almost think, are they in a different reality? Because it just makes no sense. Is there a reality where Trump restored the Bill of Rights that we don't know about? All this stuff. The liberal reality has always been its own strange, psychotic type world. But everybody is so dug in now. I mean, look, the conspiracy people like us we're so dug in, and that's what I was afraid of or trying to explore in this video. If we're gonna dig in, and we're kind of doing the same as everyone else. Look at the Trump supporters. Look at all the different facets and segments of reality. The certain type of lifestyles, they're dug in, and they'll believe forever that they're still being repressed and pushed down when every TV show's about them, and every job, they get every job, and they still will believe they have more to fight for. It's like we're all in different realities. In a way we are, because the cement has hardened. And the premise of this presentation was, okay, in a way, with our strength of our convictions, we're really not acting any different. We have different convictions, but we're not acting any different than all these other groups that have the strength in their convictions. So, we better be sure objectively that we're right. If there weren't objective standards at the base level of reality between me and, say, my friend Tony, it would be better at this point, honestly. No, same old example, but if he said, yeah, you just have to rip one sheet of Reynolds wrap tinfoil off, put it in a paper airplane, you can sail that baby right through a steel beam heavier than a Mack truck. If that happened, okay. He's in a completely different reality. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But the frustrating thing is, at the base level, we still seem to share. If you say to one of your friends, if a father, the next day or the day after they lost their little child, would that father, would he be smiling and like little snarky smiles? Would he even do an interview? See, this reality still exists. If you just ask somebody out of the blue, not related to any sort of event or anything, they would say, well, no, if somebody lost their child, they'd be at home with family and crying the next day. And this still exists as far as I know. It'd be better for us if it didn't. If Tony just said, well, I know 10 fathers that had that situation, and they went on they just went on to Six Flags and had fun the next day. See, Matt, it's all about enjoying life again and getting back up on the horse. If that happened, okay, we're in a different reality, fine. Or we're on the bank, the ship of fools has sailed. We know that's already happened, but I want it to be more pronounced. It's frustrating that we still have things we share at the base level, and then they can't just go a few more rungs up. Well, if fathers don't just go to Viva Las Vegas and have fun the next day after they lost someone, if Tony would say fathers wouldn't just go off on a junket to Las Vegas with their rugby buddies the day after, and we agree on that, we say, well, then how do you explain this? Just 2 layers up. And then, okay, Matt, here's where the frequency in the radio station takes over. Oh, they're My Favorite Martian antenna comes out. Beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, 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 boop. Matt, don't you know, Matt? People respond differently to grief. That's a nervous smile, Matt. Well, what's he doing there anyway? Why isn't he at home? Matt, people have to get it out. They have to go on a quest to change things. They want to talk to the press, Matt. Don't you know anything? It's satisfying to see through the reality trick. That's where we all are. It really is. And we thought that was the win, the end all be all. See through the trick. And we always underestimated the trick. we'd still then a year later we'd back up farther and look back and go, wow, that trick was more expansive than we thought. Well, maybe it looks like it's trying to tell us we've won. No, let's just back up a little more far. Oh my gosh, we're going to back up even farther. That trick was more expansive than we thought. By that rationale, Matt, it's more expansive than you think now. Yeah, ooh, that's where I'm going. But it doesn't matter because that's the yellow breadcrumbs. Don't you want to back if you back up forever, then you're not doing part two, the work, right? I'm saying, yeah, there's probably even more if we back up, but I'm kind of done backing up enough. I mean, last row of the movie theater. Okay, I can see the screen now. I don't need to go back into the lobby where the popcorn is and try to view the screen from there. It's good enough. Now, look, if it keep tempting you to show you a little bit different facet of reality, so you keep trying to look at it with a different perspective or back up, then you never get to part two. It will always look to sabotage part two, having to do the work or what you're supposed to do here, once the not milk reality realizes there are people that can see through part one. How did I put it recently? I don't know if I read that to you, that part, or in the book. I don't know where it is, but it will send if it's down 28-0 at halftime for an NFL football game, it will then try to make sure the game never ends. It'll send all sorts of naked and nude streakers onto the field to mess up the plays. It'll try to pull the plug on the electricity in the stadium. It'll try to affect the weather for an Operation Popeye, so the game gets rained out with lightning. Oh, as soon as the lightning strikes now, the NFL shuts down for half hour. Everything's being softened, and I guarantee you in the day of Chuck Bednarik, a little lightning, probably lightning behind the field, they probably still keep playing. Chuck Bednarik, the old Philadelphia Eagle player that laid out, was it Jack Gifford, Frank Gifford? These guys literally, they had full-time jobs at the gas station or whatever, played for an additional 20 or 30, this goes back to I think the late 40s or so, Chuck Bednarik, or, well, probably the 50s. Sorry, with Frank Gifford, it would be the late 50s, I guess. But, thunder and lightning around the field, I didn't give a crap. Everything's so soft today. And stay safe. Protective. Joey Logano in NASCAR comes out and like, I don't like this plate racing around these giant super speedways. It's dangerous. Well, that's what you're being paid to do, and it really isn't dangerous. The old days, they had almost no helmet, no protective. They hit these walls. There's safer barriers the walls give. You're a race car driver. If there was no degree of danger, no one would watch. I mean, go work at a deli or something if you don't like what you do, Joey Logano, you idiot. Sorry, what I was saying was, it will see and notice those who see through the trick. But then, as long as it can disrupt the work or what you're supposed to do in life, or the lessons you're supposed to learn, or whatever you believe you're needing to accomplish, then it has two ways to win, like a scratch-off game. Oh, you lost, but there's another thing to scratch off. This reality is a scratch-off game where it has two ways to win. And one of the ways it wins is making people think the work, I'll be brief, I've said this a million times, the work is so complicated. It's not just getting along with your sister-in-law and not letting this little thing bother you and trying to improve here and there and trying to bring the whole spiritual whole of you together. That's why all this, how many album covers and things that mind, body, spirit, all this, they're just clues. The reality gives us tons and tons of clues because it has to. In some way or under some contract. It has to. It's like a game. Not Milk, Asshole Dark, its minions, lay down a trick. It needs to lay down a trick in a certain way, so you ignore the good breadcrumbs, the ones that aren't yellow. So you ignore the clues and the spiritual messages in art and paintings and even in movies and TV shows and music. And these clues are there. They're ignored by almost everybody who has ever existed. Well, I can only speak for the modern dummy. Who knows what they noticed in the old days? They did look up and see bird signs and things like that. So I can't say that. It's ignored by 99 point whatever percent of the modern dummy. These clues are ignored. We're not crazy in seeing these clues. If you disagree with me about Humpty Dumpty, then you might agree with me about Don't Look Back and all the Humpty Dumptys and all the clues that this reality gives us, or messages in art and movies and media. And it's just endless. It's the greatest news of all time. But back to part two, don't let the not milk disrupt what you're here to do. Okay, some of us are older. Some of us are 50s, 60s, 70s. We make sure you get it done, because that not milk it's a scratch-off game with two ways to win. What is the work? It's not complicated. I don't think you have to go try to enroll in the Theosophical Society, whatever that is, to understand. Okay, that's what it wants you to believe you need to do. There's nothing more I can't stand than the word initiated. Initiated. How many times we hear, what does that even mean? I'm initiating myself in terms of understanding how reality works, understanding there's a spiritual side to me, and understanding what I need to do in life to improve and to move the whole of us forward. What does that have to do with the word initiation? That's like looking to something, again, an outside force or something. We don't need someone's approval or some initiation. What the hell does that even mean? I know one thing, that the Not Milk Reality loves groups of all kinds and camps of all kinds. I don't think there's any group that can be joined, any classification. I'm Irish American. I'm any sort of group. I'm even saying you're of this religion. To me, every single group, every single camp, every single way you separate from someone else. Now, worry about yourself is separate, okay? But that's different. That's a personal spiritual journey. That's not applying a name or a title that was created out there onto you. Okay, that every camp or group joined, I don't care if it's the Boy Scouts up through whatever, to me, that is a losing tactic and exactly what the Not Milk wants. That doesn't mean I regret playing Little League Baseball, or you shouldn't send your kid to play Little. That's a group, and Little League. What I played for the Pirates, I played for the Orioles. What else did I play for? The Cardinals, I believe, in Little League. I don't regret that. Isn't that joining it? No, it's not. Because I don't identify as that group. The first thing in a job interview, I don't say, I'm this cisgendered and I played for this Little League team and I still identify. You still identify via your third grade Little League team? If you choose that as part of you, if you that's how you identify, the more ways that groups and camps this reality can slice and dice, it brings you more towards the wrong side of the Vitruvian man, away from spiritual self. Camps and groups and names and titles and OBE. What was the other one? CB. That's what Elton John. that's what Elton John graduated up to. CBE. Oh boy, I hope no one's thinking about what he needed to do for that. But that's a camp, a group. It's the wrong side of the Vitruvian man. You can play Little League Baseball. Do you identify through it? But look what they do today. I'm a native, I'm this and that, I identify as this, I'm they, them, I'm non-binary, all the ways to identify, all having yourself crawl down the wrong end of the Vitruvian man's arm, rooting to this side of reality and ignoring the spiritual. Its game at this point is pathetic and obvious. Thanks for listening.